Hello, welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina. Our conversation today is with Miss Alma Davis. You are going to enjoy her transparency, her ability to convey the importance of her faith as it relates to dealing with the death of her husband, Tony, her professional background, how it impacted her life. Let's get into the conversation now.
Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner. Share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Tina.
Hello, welcome Alma to the Widowhood.
Good morning. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. So we know it is a Saturday morning and Alma's on the West Coast and she has gotten up bright and early to be here to join the Widowhood.
Yes, I have. Bright and early.
So Alma, what gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope? Well, I'm looking forward to the future. It's bright and sunshiny, as it always is in San Diego for the most part.
Okay.
I'm about to finish my seminary journey, which has been a journey, especially with grief and just health conditions, which is not unusual as it relates to our grief, and
Right.
So I'm about to complete May 27th, which is my daughter's 36th birthday. And so I'm really excited about that because I'm in the process of implementing a mental health group program that was created by Joe Padilla. And it's called Living Grace. So anyone who's dealt with anxiety, depression, or any other mental health programs or any other mental health issues can go online with me and join this group. I'm currently in the process of creating some peer support. So I'm really excited about that. And it gives me great hope because I'm just booming with the excitement and opportunities that will come my way.
Okay, great. So when we list the podcast, and we'll put that on our website and some of our social to be able to actually share that link. I'm sure it's probably kind of long to share with people right now, but we'll be sure to list that out.
Okay.
And you have written a book, if I recall, too, as far as in this journey?
I actually did. It was called A Widow's Virtue. And I don't even know if it's out there on Amazon anymore.
Okay.
But yes, it was about my process through grief. And it kind of begins with the moment that, actually prior to the moment that Tony actually passed away. It kind of goes through my journey. It was incredible writing it because I felt like Groundhog's Day. I was constantly in it. But I tried to write it in such a way that it shared the experience, but at the same time demonstrated the hope that was there. Looking back on it retrospectively, I'm not certain that it showed enough hope because I did have some comments from other widows and they said it was too raw. So
okay,
it's
but
out there.
I want the raw because that's what the real talk is about. Because if we don't have the rawness and the realness, how do we really know what to prepare for?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And I'm not always sure that I talked about the preparation as I did about what God was doing and showing me, and of course the rawness of my desires for that future. I had future expectations about, how my husband and I would live, especially after the children were out of the house. And, I wasn't too graphic about those things, but certainly, when you have an empty nest, there's some excitement that you had to put on reserve when
Hello.
your
Okay,
children
this
were there.
the podcast is for age 18 and older. This is not for children, so we
Oh,
good.
okay. So yeah, I just talked about some fun times that we could have, during that empty nest season, that we didn't really have I want to say a full opportunity to experience prior
Right.
to my getting pregnant. Yeah.
Okay.
So I
So
got
Tony,
married at a really young
so
age.
tell us about who Tony is and how you guys met and that's in your journey
Oh
of
my
that.
gosh. Oh my God. Tony was the love of my life.
Okay.
And I was in the Air Force Reserve. And I had prayed and I was like, Lord, 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 I want to go to England where our 6-week tour was going to be. And, he made that happen for me. And so I met the love of my life while I was there. We actually worked in the same building. And I remember I had on my fatigues and I was walking up to the building, and there was this guy at the door. And I had my hands in my pocket. And, in the military, you're not supposed to have your hands in your pocket. But, I'm a reservist and I'm spending too much time in the real world, so to speak. And so there's this beautiful guy at the door, grand piano smile. And he was like, why are you playing pocket pool? And I was like, excuse me? Who are you to be telling me what to do? And I went on in the building and he disappeared, but he actually knew my boss from previous reserve trips to England. And he arranged for me to come to his office because one of my girlfriends was actually working in the office with him. And so my boss was like, "Oh, you need to go see Cassandra. You need to go see Cassandra." And I was like, "Well, I'm busy. I don't need to go see Cassandra." But eventually I gave in because he was nagging me, right? And so, what do you know? Mr. Davis is in that office with Cassandra. So it was a setup, okay? But it was a good setup. And so, just for the time that I was there, the whole story unfolded. And I just remember one occasion right now. I wish I could have sent you this picture, but everything's packed away in storage. And so we were sitting on the lawn, and there was these children that gathered around him, and he was just playing with them. And I thought, oh my God, he would be such a wonderful father. I don't even know why that came to me, but it did. And so as the story unfolded, I left England. We kept in touch. I didn't know, or he didn't know, where he was going to be stationed after we left. So we made this pact. If he got orders for the base where I was, then I would take him for a trip to San Francisco. And if he didn't get stationed there, then he would have to fly from wherever he was and take me on a trip to San Francisco. Well, needless to say, I had to pay for the trip to San Francisco. And it was an absolutely beautiful time. We had a hotel on the water, and it was just, oh my God, it was just heaven. It was just heaven. And I remember my telling my girlfriend Pam when I came home, and I was like, "Oh, Pam, it was just like hand in glove."
Hmm.
So there goes my love story.
So how long did you guys date before you got married? How did it go upward from
Oh
there?
my gosh! So we communicated via letter. We were writing letters at
Yeah, because
that
it was
time.
that time. It was no, it was, yeah, we was the letter communicator. Like you wrote
Yes,
a letter and
yes,
filled out an
yes.
envelope and put it in. Yes.
And so I actually have those letters in a book to this day. He had
Oh,
given me a rose from a garden that was there, and I still have that to this
wow.
day. And yeah, so everything I had collected from that time. But what was your question? I'm sorry, I got so
That's okay.
excited.
What was the dating and getting to marriage? What did that
Oh,
look
oh,
like for
oh,
you
oh,
guys?
oh. So we communicated for about 4 or 5 months, and then of course, silly me, I found this other guy kind of found me, and I thought, oh no, I think I want this. because it was a more materialistic kind of thing.
Okay.
It was an officer, and he was a pilot and all of these things. And
Right.
I remember my aunt, she came over to the house, and she was asking about my trip to London. And so I brought out my photo album and I was showing it to her. And she said, oh, she was looking at that picture that I just told you about. We had taken a picture when we were at the park looking at those children. And she said, that's your husband. I was like, what? She's from Louisiana, could have been some, whatever. But I don't know, but Aunt Frances, she did some incredible things with medicine or with herbs and stuff. So I never messed with Aunt Frances. When she spoke, I was like, oh, really? I don't think so. We've ended that relationship. She said, I don't care. That's your husband. And I was like, woo, okay. So moving forward, the Lord that relationship didn't work out. So I had to eat humble pie and, write him and say, you know what? I was really being materialistic, and the love and the care that I shared with you, it was matchless. It was unmatchless. So I'm eating humble pie and I'm telling you that I'm sorry. And if you ever come to Sacramento, I'm available. And so fast forward when we got married, or no, yeah, when we got married, my sister-in-laws and my parents, oh, actually the family, right, told me when he got that letter, they had rerouted it from London to his parents' home in New York. he he bolted out of there, they said. And they were like, oh my God, what's going on here? You just got home. You've been gone for 4 years. We haven't seen you. And then his uncle said, it must be a woman. So that's where we got. So in a timeline, it was probably about a year or so.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was quick. We didn't waste any time. It was a love story, there
Oh,
was, oh my
wow.
gosh, it was like, I was staying at the Bird in the Hand when I was in London. So I'm going
Okay.
backwards, right? And so it was, the London fog was at our shoulders that night. We were standing by
Mm.
this white picket fence, and he asked me if he could kiss me. And I was like, oh my God, what a love story.
Mm.
God, he just took my breath away.
He's still taking your breath away.
He is, but it's, he's been gone for 21 years. But to
Wow.
tell that story is life for me,
Yeah.
because he brought me joy. He brought me peace. I had had so much chaos in my life,
Okay.
prior to that. But, we as Black women, we keep that momentum. We keep that endurance. We keep forging forward, because I was young at that time and I was determined to make it, to do something with my life. Um, but he just brought rest to
Mm.
my continued forward upward momentum,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
It
And
does. It
so
does.
yeah, he was everything to me. And you know, when he died, there was such a great loss, such a great
Mm.
loss.
Do you mind
Yeah.
sharing how Tony transitioned from this world?
No, not at all, not at all. So my being a nurse was probably one of the most challenging things in this process,
Okay.
because I worked in critical care at the time that he got diagnosed, which was in 1999.
And he was
And
diagnosed with,
oh, pancreatic cancer.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
And so only 1% survival rate from pancreatic cancer. And
Mm.
normally when it shows up, it's at the very late stages
Okay.
because of the location of the pancreas. So when his did manifest, he was actually in working. So we lived in San Diego, but he was working in Florida because he was going through a transition process. And so normally when he flew back home, we had been apart for so long, it was
On and
on.
popping.
But this time when he came home, he he wasn't
himself.
his funeral. Yeah, he wasn't his funeral before, and he just went to bed and went to sleep. And I remember waking up in the morning and I'm looking at him. He got up out of bed and he went to the bathroom and then he came back and he said, my urine is Coca-Cola color. And I was like, okay, I'm a nurse, right? Critical care. I'm going into motion because I need to diagnose what's going on with my baby. And I look in his eyes and they're jaundiced, so yellow in color. And so he had been in Florida, he had been sharing with me what he had been eating. And I thought, okay, maybe he encountered, something and he's developed hepatitis and blah,
Okay.
blah, blah. And I was like, okay, well, we're going to urgent care this morning. Okay. And so we did go to urgent care and everything that I had said in advance about what it could be, that's what the doctors were thinking also.
Okay.
And I remember it's so funny because, nurses, we expect things to happen right now. Okay. But
Exactly.
that wasn't the case. But I remember they drew his blood and they said, well, we won't be able to get it, over to Pomerado until Monday. And I was like, oh, no, 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 no. I will carry that blood over to Pomerado. I work there. Not a problem. I
Oh,
know the people in the lab. So I did carry it up. They did allow me to do that. And so when it came back, it showed that he had elevated, what was it? Not lipids. Oh, can't think of what it is. I've been out of nursing for such a long time. But I think it was his HDL or something
okay.
had to do with his pancreas.
Okay.
And it was elevated. I mean, extremely elevated. And so they decided that they needed to go in and do a sonogram and a endoscopy, I think it was, they said
Mm.
they wanted to do. And so they did those things and they realized that it was pancreatic involvement and that the common bile duct was obstructed
Oh.
at the head of the pancreas, which was why everything was backing up. And that's why we're seeing the presentation in his
Mm.
eyes. So that journey began. They diagnosed him with pancreatic cancer. And so the plan was to go in, let me stop right there. I asked him what he wanted to do because the Lord had shared when I was early in my career as a nurse. We were in Tucson, Arizona at that time, and I had developed this incredible relationship with one of my patients and his wife, and he had pancreatic cancer.
Oh.
But I remember when I left my shift and I knew I wasn't going to return, I just knew in my heart he was not going to live, you
Okay. Your
know?
patient, the person you
Yes, my
cared for.
patient at that
Okay.
time. And I just couldn't bring myself to say goodbye. Well, fast forward to my experience.
Mm.
Now I know why. It was almost like I wasn't accepting of a reality that was going to come my way. But at the same time, it was, as I look back on it retrospectively, it was God preparing me for my future.
I see.
Um, and so in December of 1999, and I hope I'm not leaving you out of this conversation.
This is
The,
okay, darling. This is your conversation. I'm
oh,
just here to
okay, okay.
moderate. This is
Oh,
all
okay,
your
okay,
journey. No, no, you're
okay,
fine.
okay. So in 1999, the Lord woke me up and he said, Alma, you have cancer. And I was like, ooh, okay, Lord, I'll wait for it to manifest. And that didn't surprise me. My response didn't respite. Uh, it wasn't surprising to me because over the course of my life, that's how God had dealt with me. When
Okay.
things that would overwhelm me, he would tell me in advance so that I would know that he was present with me.
Mm.
And so this was another occasion.
So let's stop right there.
Yes.
And I know there are people listening to this podcast that have different faiths and different beliefs. I respect that. And the intention is to talk to different people because how our faith impacts our grief in life is so important.
Yes.
And I love that you said that because it doesn't mean hardship and trials will not come in life.
Right.
It's just that our faith in God will be there with us through those trials because
Yes.
those things make us. There
Yes.
must be a reason for us to have this journey in life and to experience these trials, these tribulations, and things that we learn, people that are with us on this journey. Because if not, whenever we started our particular faith or relationship with God, we didn't leave this planet immediately. This journey has value. So
Yes.
that is impeccable to think that hardships are going to come, but to know that the creator of the universe is with you in that process,
Yes.
you deal with it differently.
You do. You do. You absolutely do. And through this journey, I can say that so moving forward, the doctors and my husband decided that a Whipple procedure would be the best in terms of perhaps not curative, but longevity. And
Okay.
so when we were scheduled for surgery, he went into surgery, and the surgeon came out and said, because the tumor is at the tail, we couldn't do the full Whipple procedure. So therefore, we did what we could to kind of mitigate whatever pain that he would have
Okay.
in response to this particular cancer, because the pain is excruciating.
Mm.
And so they did that. The Whipple procedure, let me kind of back up, is kind of like a gastric bypass that they're doing now for reduction of weight,
Oh,
but not to the full extent.
I see.
Okay. And so, but he did obviously with cancer lose weight, and you could see the belly kind of like for protein deficit,
Mm.
developing as he went through. But oh, I wanted to share this point. When the surgeon came out and said that he could not perform the surgery that we had hoped for, of course, our hearts dropped. I'm
Mm.
in the room with my children and my mother and my in laws. But what I heard in my spirit was, I will confound the wise.
Oh.
And so we asked, what time period do we have? And he said, 6 weeks to 3 months.
Wow, very short.
And then that's when the confounding of the wise came. And so that's important, because as we journey through this process, when we got beyond 6 weeks,
Mm.
I would ask the doctors, so what's going on?
Right.
Because I knew that regardless of the outcome, it was going to be an incredibly terrible journey. I didn't realize how bad it would be for me, but I seen God move, because he said he would confound the wise. And so I would just ask the doctors, so what do you think? We're beyond that 6 month period. And Dr. Sandra was the oncologist who was providing Tony with the chemotherapy. And he's like, I don't know, Alma. It's a miracle. It must be your prayers. And I was like, okay, I'm just checking, because I'm watching God move on the hearts of these doctors. That's what that
Mm.
meant to me when he said he was going to confound the wise. And so we just kept proceeding through, and the chemo would work for a while, and then it would hit like a wall and stop.
Mm.
So we'd have to change. But now we're like 3 months, we're like 5 months out, and things are beginning to work again. And we're making progress. And I would say to Dr. Sandro, so what's your thoughts here? What's going on? And he says, I don't know. This is a miracle. And I was like, yeah, it sure is.
Wow.
That's how God works. And so, make a long story short, we got 21 months out of this journey.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
And God did some powerful things.
Mm.
Man, you know, it was just overwhelming sometimes how powerful he moved through this experience in confounding even the doctors' minds. because the trajectory of this particular cancer was normally at this point, because I didn't share that it had already metastasized to his liver and to his lungs when they identified it at the
Oh
surgery
my.
point.
Okay.
So to get 21 months was truly a miracle. And
Yes.
to have the doctors say this was a miracle, I was
Mm.
like, you need to know who my God is.
Right.
Because he even said, Alma, it must have been your prayers.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, I guess so.
Mm.
And so really fast forward, probably 10 or 15 years, 10 years out, I met this doctor, Dr. Sondrum, at my car had some scratches and a dent in it. So it was at a collision center in Mira Mesa. And he remembered me.
Oh wow.
And he said, oh my God, Alma. And I said, oh, you're who? God, he said, that experience with your husband was life transforming.
Oh really?
He said, yeah, I had never seen anything like that. And, he says, oncology can be a difficult field. And I said, yeah, I get that, because people are constantly dying, kind of like hospice, but it sucks out your hope, it can suck
Mm-hmm.
out your hope depending on where you are. But he said, oh my gosh, it was really a restoration. And so that one person's life was impacted so powerfully through our journey. It was like that one sheep that was lost and
Yes.
just left the 99 to go and get him. And
Mm.
so I now know what it's like when Paul says, the encounters that I've experienced were for your benefit. I know that in a different way now. I can hear that where I didn't hear that before. And it's kind of like David, where he says, what the enemy meant for evil, God meant it for my good, that I may save like a generation of people. And so those things have been my hope, but I've not always been through the journey of recovery for me. It's not always been at this high point. I was not always able to see and grasp the beauty and the significance of these high points, because I hit a really low point.
I think that's important to say because you may have had this. Those two verses that you mentioned are powerful, but I don't think that's something I need to hear the week my husband died.
Right,
Those are not
right.
comforting verses that you give me as you think you're being supportive. It's too soon. You can
Yes,
pray those for me on the back end,
yes, yes.
but in the grit of that moment is not when you deliver that verse to me.
Exactly, exactly. And I think that's huge. And not even I remember when I went to the lawyer to register our trust,
Mm,
he said to me, he said, okay, now you've done everything you needed to do. Now you just need to get on with your life. And I was like, that was a dagger. That was a dagger, because my husband hadn't even been dead 3 weeks. And you're telling me to get on with my life? Really?
what
Really? And
life?
that wasn't even exactly, I don't even know what that looks like. Okay.
Yes.
And I'm going to be truthful with you. I've been a Bible teacher for a really long time. And I'm telling you, hope was across the street. I couldn't even lay hands to hope.
Yes.
I knew about it because it's God's word, but I could not lay hands on hope. And so I guess the truthfulness and the painfulness of that saying is that I was experiencing hopelessness at that point.
Yes.
And so in my faith, there's a tension here that I'm not familiar with. And I am torn,
Yes.
because I'm feeling like Peter when he denied Jesus.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And so I'm like, whoa, what's happening here? But I want to pause right here and say, in the beginning of my book that I did write, I said that I knew at that moment he died that everything I had ever taught and believed was going to be tried by fire. And
Yes.
only that which remained would be precious stone and could be used for God's glory. And so that's where I'm at on the other side now.
But
It
how
can
many
be,
years, Alma? How many years is that?
oh, honey, honey, honey. It was a long journey. I'm gonna say 15 years before I really felt up, 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 up.
And that is important because there are people, because so often you hear in the widow community, if you just make it through the year, all those first years of those anniversaries, then you'll be okay. To me, what happened after that first year, you like they really did. Like you cannot run away from anymore. You can't do all this stuff, check the box. It's like now that I've done all of this, the real work of me coming to the reality
Yeah,
of their absence
yeah,
becomes whatever it's going to look like. It's going
yeah.
to be challenging, the plate, just all of that. And thank you for mentioning that. It is a process to
Oh my
go
God.
through that. And it's not just time going by that makes
That's
it
right.
happen. Time
That's
can
right.
go by and you can be in the same location with that if we
Mhm.
don't do something in dealing with the reality of it. I
Yeah.
have found for me.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And so, for me, a big part of my journey was since I did marry so young, there were things that I missed out in my young adult life.
Oh,
And
okay.
so through this journey, I went from my mom's house to our house.
Okay.
So I had to go up back and pick up me and find who me was,
Mm.
and also deal with this loss at the same time, because I'm 40 years of age at that time of his death, but I had to go back to age 21 to some degree and develop those spaces that had not been developed. I
Mm.
had never lived on my own. I had certainly gone to college, but I didn't know who I was. I was a registered nurse, so I could take care of myself financially and maintain the lifestyle that we had currently lived in because of the way we had set up, trust and all of that stuff. But that wasn't enough. I had to deal with the multiple losses. Not only did I lose a husband, I lost the future of retirement. I lost a grandfather for my grandchildren that weren't even yet to be born. I lost just a companion in life. And even I think about that now in my current reality, I'm still longing for that peace, you know? And so, there were just so many losses that people don't even, well, I hadn't considered, and people around you don't consider. And I think that's why they want to console you with scripture to give you hope. Um, but you you have to go through the process. And I'll tell you, Tina, I had enough Jesus on board, but with Jesus, just with Jesus, I was out of balance. My
Oh.
husband kept me in balance. I could go up into
Ah,
the heavenlies. And
okay.
I mean, I was like Paul, I've been to the third heaven, and God revealed some things to me. But my husband was an air traffic controller, and so he kept my plane on the ground, girl, when it needed to be. And so I've had to learn to do that for
Okay.
myself grounded. And so I had to go to counseling to
Yes.
find that grounding. But even in that process, Tina, the Lord worked on my counselor through
Okay.
stories because, in the field of psychology, they have certain beliefs about God and certain beliefs about people of God. But God had grown me up in his word. And so the things that I was talking to them about were things that they had questions about, but never vocalized, you know?
Okay.
And so I don't know if this is supposed to happen, but we became friends. Not that we went out because that would be against,
Unethical.
yes, but they were amazed at my process. But
So
they
still
also
going
provided,
back to what God said that he would confound the wise in
come
that
on, girl.
beginning, even in therapy. And but see, you have a medical background. You're able to have
Yes,
that conversation a little bit differently than the regular person that's untrained in
yes,
it. So you're
yes,
having a conversation about your faith, the loss of your husband, life,
yes,
and everything is
yes,
still in a way in which it relates to them. So I could see that being used differently.
yes, yes, you're absolutely right. But even with that piece, I was in handcuffs as
Hmm.
a nurse. And let me tell you why. And so that was a part of the real difficulty that I needed to have sorted out with my counselor, because here I am working as a critical care nurse. I'm saving lives. I'm a child of God with the help of the Lord. I'm titrating drugs. I mean, it's just like it's happening. And the very thing I would want to do for my own husband, I cannot do.
Hmm.
And so I'm in handcuffs and
Hmm.
I can't move.
Hmm.
From my best girlfriends, they were angry at, or she was angry at me because she said, Alma, you're not using your medical knowledge. And I said, Frida, I tried. Frida, I even went to the book to pull down the pancreatic information so that I could have an intelligent conversation with the physicians. And the Lord shut the book on me and he said, Alma, this is a faith journey. It's not about intellect. And I was like, oh my God. And so I had to tell her that, but she was still upset with me. And then one day, this is how good God is. See, she was a part of that confounding of the wise intellect as well. She said, one day she called me up and she said, Alma, let's go have coffee because I was praying about you. And the Lord, it was like he opened up a treasure box and all this light came through it. And then it shut. And I realized the faith for which you were working out of that I could not perceive before. And so I apologized. And I was like, okay, when you have a sister love like that, what can you do but accept that apology? Because when you're going through, and I think, Tina, for those of us who are, women of faith, and we've been with the Lord for a long time, and we've been applying the scripture to our lives, and we've been making the necessary changes, and we haven't been hiding behind the veil of our Christianity. We've been pulling up roots. We've been planting seeds that we hope will gain a harvest, and all of these things. And so people don't understand what we're going through because we're the strong person they always came to for spiritual advice. And let's face it, we don't have any right now.
That right there. That right there. I remember when Mark passed, I came into church and someone said, Reverend Tina, you just doing a good job. And I looked at them. I was said, he died in front of me, right? You know, I'm like, stop talking. And it got to a point for me, I wanted to be in church, but I couldn't go to my home church. I had to go someplace else where I could just be Tina. I could just
Yes,
be a
yes,
person that they saw at the altar that was crying and weeping and
yes,
just cover me that because I cannot pour out of an empty vessel. There
right,
was I was challenged with believing if I prayed something was going to happen. I was
right,
challenged with believing being able to give somebody words of encouragement. Not that I believe God, I believe who God was, but a lot of the tenets of those things I could not organically operate, talk in, and do because, like you said, Mark was dead, like
yeah,
dead, like my life is altered and all this. What does this mean? How is this in perspective? What does that look like in my life? Because unfortunately, a lot of other things, whether we intentionally believe it or not, if bad has happened, how does that impact what it looks like my walk with God is doing? And certainly my
Yes.
husband dying is not cool.
Right,
So
right,
I'm
right,
gonna
right.
gonna need to reconcile that. And what I
Yes,
hear that journey is that reconciliation of leaving this world as part of existence
yes,
and finding peace and solace and finding where God was with me in that journey that solidifies this is what it looks like. And how does God be magnified in that process? And how do I trust him even more in a way that I never did before? Because
yes,
unfortunately, the opportunity didn't present itself. So
yes,
I can relate with that. And then going
yes.
back to that one thing about that perception of strength. No, I'm not
Woo!
strong. I'm just barely not falling apart right here. I'm trying to get to the car real quick before they ain't not strong here. Y'all just got this all wrong because I don't talk about it. I don't show you all of that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Oh, you're just gonna put it in my lap now,
Yeah,
huh?
and what do you
Well,
think?
you know what? What I have to, part of my reconciliation is we are strong women, but there are times when our strength is not personified. And we have to
Okay.
be okay with not being okay about that, because that is to perceive someone as being strong all the time in every situation is an imbalanced scale. And the word of God says that's an abomination to him. So, we need to get rid of that. Okay. And we need to come into balance. We need to come into real life perspective, because if we don't, and we try to work out of that strength when it's really an empty vessel,
Yeah, because we'll
we,
try to live up to that because people keep telling
yes,
you instead of
yes,
going, no, no, let's deal with reality. We have to say that ourselves because no one will stand there organically and do it.
yes. And I think that God, he dealt with me on that, because I
Mm.
was trying to be strong and live up to that expectation. I was leading praise and worship. I was leading the women's group, and I was doing everything I possibly could before I fell apart and hit the wall and wound up on my back, and all I could do was look up. Girl, it was good. Um, but the Lord said to me, he said, Alma, you need to go to the book of Lamentations. And I was like, Lord, I can't go there because I'm already weeping enough. He said, Alma, he kept saying, Alma, you need to go to Lamentations. When I opened up Lamentations, I always have a study Bible. So you know how it breaks it down? It said that Lamentations, it takes away the idea, that's not the word that he used, but it takes away the idea that you have to live up to strength, right? When you're in a moment of lament. And
Yes.
that began a new trajectory for me, because he says, Alma, if you miss this opportunity that's occurring for you right now, you're going to miss your greatest opportunity to minister to people from an authentic place. And I was like, what? Let's dive in, God, because he knows me, and he knows that if I get the real, so to speak, about the situation, I'll tell it. I'll tell it from a real place. I'll have you crying in the real place, but I'll tell it. And he knows that about me. And I know that he loves me as a woman after his own heart, like David. You know what I mean? And that's where I'm at now. I'm telling it from a real place, that and through my seminary journey, God is so faithful to me. He gives me those huge nuggets. If if we read the Psalms of David, and he spoke to me through that because I was a worshiper just like David, you'll see that David was very honest about his emotions. When he was in a place of anger, boy, he said, I hope your family dies as a result of what you're doing to me. But then as you watch the psalm that it comes down, he said, but God, I know it's you that's going to
Mm.
deliver me out of this place, you know? And so the Psalms have taught us how to be real with our emotions, but we've moved those out of our services. We've moved those out of the places where they need to be to teach people how to deal with these raw emotions that they don't know what to do with.
Yes, it's all right there. Because yes.
So he's allowed me to really see the Psalms in a way that I had not, because I hadn't really been exposed to them because I was in that strong zone with everybody else. And so my point in all of this is that with what we've gone through and loss and grief, there is a process. But we in Christendom have said to people, this is where your event happened, and this is where you need to be right now. Let's skip the process, because God said, weeping may endure for a night, but joy comes in the morning. It's
Oh,
morning time, girlfriend.
you don't weep like the world weep.
Oh, we don't. We don't. Yeah, we
No, that's why it's supposed to be instant and done,
yes,
because of those two
yes.
verses right
Oh,
there.
yes. You got it. You got
You
it.
still
And,
sad about that?
oh, girl.
You're still, it's been 2 years. I thought you would have moved on by now. Are you still
Well,
dealing with that?
yeah, yeah, I'm going through the motions of life. I'm taking new jobs and I'm doing some great things out here, but my heart
Oh,
has this void in it. I'm still trying to live. I'm not laying aside. I'm not in a room in a straitjacket. I'm trying to live, but this was a big thing for me. I was a worshiper, and God said, we've been too close. You can't come up into my presence just faking it. I was like, wow. I had, I literally could not worship.
and that's okay. Because
Oh, honey.
you're dealing with a broken heart. And if you don't deal with that broken heart, one of the things you said, if you're a worshiper, you're leading people into worship. If you're a worshiper, it's not just that moment when you're singing, your life is about worship. It's now that, because you can love somebody out of the love that God gave you, then when they're having a hard time and you're going there, you can, that word we use now is empathy, but you're leveraging now all
Yes,
that God has done, all that you've experienced, to be present with them in that moment. Whether it's this
yes,
conversation that other widowers will listen to, or their family, and
yes,
understand to not put this fake band-aid over something that is
yes,
not holding back anything, and to
yes,
just be as this goes.
yes. And to just be. I
Hmm.
remember a friend who was going, he was a guy too. He was going through the loss of a divorce. He was going through a breakup. And I remember he had gotten to that point. He says, Alma, you just need to learn to be. And I hadn't lost my husband at that time. And I was like, be? What, what is that? Well, honey, I know what that is now. Sometimes you're not in a headspace to be receptive to these seeds that are being planted, but when they germinate, they're germinating within your spirit, and they
Mm,
will rise when
mm.
it's time, and you'll learn to embrace it. And it won't be foreign to you because it came from someone that you knew was going through, and they planted a seed of hope and understanding that you couldn't even perceive at the time.
Yeah, you cannot. This is a journey that what you receive from it and what becomes of it is truly can be miraculous.
Yes.
It really can. I would have never thought 6 years ago, as I was devastatingly trying to consider what to do in the next day, that it would be a conversation so open to share journeys and to bring other people hope and encouragement, and to go, I know it sucks right now. Do I know it sucks? But there's
Yes.
something on the other side of this. There is
Yes.
life, not just existing, but there is a life opportunity for you to thrive. And it's okay to talk about how you feel. It's okay to connect. Oh, speaking of connecting, so I came to California and met you through your cousin, and we went to a widow convention. Are they still in existence?
Um, I don't think so. I think COVID knocked them out.
Yep.
And they were an older group of women.
Yes.
And so, gosh, I haven't been in contact with them, but Betty did let me know that, because of COVID, they had to kind of
Right.
shut things down. But, they were a group of women. They would have teas and things like that. So I would imagine they're still doing those kinds of things.
Yes.
But in terms of putting on the event itself,
Right.
I would say not. And I think to
But just
some
the
degree,
idea of making connection, there are opportunities when you search for them that are other people going through a journey with you. And
yes,
knowing that you're not alone is so helpful to
yes.
realize all these different thoughts, all these different things I'm experiencing, that it is unfortunately common that other
Yes.
people are having these same things, and this is natural in the loss of
Yeah. And
someone.
yeah. And Jesus emphasized community. And so this is a unique community, and not everyone can be in the conversation.
And nor do
And
we
so,
want to be really.
yeah, I remember when I went to the widows conference, one of the girls said, "Oh, I don't want to be a part of this group." She said, "I love you guys, but I'm not going to be a part of this group." And I was like, none of us really care to be a part of this group. But, through it, God is doing some unique things. I don't know about you, but I've always prayed for purpose in my life. I
Yeah.
want to know my purpose, Lord. And so, what I've come to realize with that desire is that our purpose is not always something that is just really awesome. And it's not always something that most people would like to journey through.
True.
But what I've come to realize is that I'm a living stone and I can bring life where death may occur.
I can relate with that. I was actually talking to my daughter who lives on the West Coast. She was driving home from work and just talking about and sharing how I feel this platform, this organization, Widowhood Real Talk with Tina, is literally, I am seeing that as my purpose is God is using my educational background in running businesses and having an accounting degree to be able to set up a 501(c)(3) and not have to pay somebody else to do it. I had the means to do that. To be able to understand the organization structure of a nonprofit, have board members, to so many different pieces, whether it's just my organic willingness to talk and I
Yeah.
care about people, how
Yes.
God has used this experience of losing my husband to be purposeful for other people. The people I've met over the year, when you and I met, what, maybe 4 years ago, I didn't know it was going to be like, hey girl,
More
hey,
than that, more than that, it
right,
seems
like,
like.
well, Mark has been deceased for 6 years, so I think it was like the first or
You,
second year
yeah,
that
yeah,
we
yeah,
met.
yeah. It
And
was your
us
first
walking
year.
up the hills in California, and this connection to stay, and as our
Yes,
journey has progressed for
yes,
this.
yes,
Um,
yes,
so you
yes,
talked about, so, and thank you. So we talked about a lot what has happened. And we started off with what you're excited about. What do you
yes.
see happening in this year for you?
Oh my gosh, I can hardly contain myself. I'm trying to, I have this unique ability to spin multiple plates at one time. I don't
Oh,
know if you've
okay.
seen all of them stacking up. And so I'm trying not to do that because I don't
Okay.
multitask as well as I used to,
Okay.
or it may create some anxiety in me because of all of the things that I've been through. I don't know if I shared with you, but through this process, I've had what do they call it? A dissection of my heart, which they call the widowmaker. And I remember saying to God, "Okay, I'm already a widow, so
Oh yeah,
this
you
ain't
started
funny."
talking about health. We didn't dive back into that because a lot of people experience health challenges immediately after losing a spouse. So yes,
Yes,
please share about
yes,
that.
yes. And I also went through breast cancer. So now I'm having to come back from all of these things,
Mm,
on top of the loss of my husband. And then I was just speaking to my sister-in-law. We lost 10 people in that same time period in
Oh,
10 years.
oh my.
Yeah. So all of this is on top of the grief. And so and I had to extubate my father-in-law from a ventilator. And
Mm.
I had I lost my mother-in-law. So I buried a whole group of people. And so,
And you have children that you're a mother to in the
oh
absence
my
of.
God.
I mean, I know
Oh,
they're grown, but they still require that love and support of a mom.
and that's been one of my challenges I'm having to face is my daughter mentioned to me that I wasn't always available for her emotionally
Okay. Because
because
you're
I was
dealing.
doing all these things and dealing with my own grief.
Yes, yes.
And so, yeah, that's something that I've had to process through. But there was something else you said. I knew that'll keep us talking forever. That's so.
I can relate to that. As I look back on that first year,
Mhm.
I was thinking, I have nothing to give my kids right now.
That's
And there
right.
was a lot
That's
of
that.
silence. So we were texting and we would have different things. So Mark died in March. I had a plan what we would do for Christmas. But between there was a lot of silence. If there was anything I could change, I wish that I had enough to give them and to try to survive because I thought their whole world is shook. Not only is their dad gone from this, the two people that they would count on in everything in life are out of pocket. One
That's
by
right.
the nature of Mark's passing and my incapacity to just give anything to them as I mean, I didn't go back to work for 3 months. I was in bed. There was a lot of just,
I hear
I'm just
you.
trying to be like, really life? Like this is what we're doing?
Right.
And I want to say it was like 6 months, like when we went March, April, May, July. Yeah, when we went to for Christmas, that I could start feeling like, okay, Tina, you got kids right here. You got to start paying attention. And I'm grateful that my children were older. I
Yeah.
can I know that there are people with very young children. I have
Yeah.
talked to people, their time to cry was in the shower because they didn't want this child to see them crying or what they need to do or be in the car because it has to come out some way. But
Yeah.
women are generally the caretaker. We're taking care and doing emotionally for people and putting our own emotions on the side. So that is a lot to have to deal with.
Yeah. And I think that looking back retrospectively, and then also what I've learned through my own grief experience, I really think we should allow that grief to be present for our children to some
Hmm.
degree,
Okay.
because if we hide those emotions, then what we're saying about what we feel is that it's okay to be stoic,
Oh, yes, that is true. That
and
is
we
true.
implode as a result of that. And I know that, in Christendom, that's been something that we've always promoted, be strong, be strong, be strong. But then we're creating these children that in our be strong, be strong, be strong, who are not developing the emotional bandwidth that they need to go through life.
So when we say strength, as you said that, it made me think when I'm saying be strong, my strength is I'm trusting God. I'm not trusting what I see always or what is this moment of this circumstance. I'm trusting God for the big picture. That is where I see my strength in.
Yes,
Unfortunately, also is dealing with breast cancer, dealing with the loss of my spouse, everyday trials. I'm not trusting the momentary scenario, but
correct,
my strength is I'm trusting God for the long process. Do not
correct,
confuse my inability to not trust God to feel like I'm handling this because
right,
it's beyond me. When
right.
my daughter was Catherine, I want to say she was maybe like 5 or 6, and she had a cold and she was sick one day, and I was supposed to be at church doing something and I walked into her bedroom. She said, Mom, is God going to be mad if I don't go to church? And I was like, what am I teaching her? Am I teaching her
Exactly.
that this is a performance based scenario? Because if so, then I need to change this. And I told my husband, I said, you and Alex can go. I'm staying home with her. I took off my clothes. I put on my pajamas. Now we had a VCR that we put with the tape, had to rewind the
Oh
movie.
no, we're telling our age.
No. And I sat in her room. We got ice cream and we watched the movie. And I said, baby, God loves you unconditionally. And if you're sick, we are not about to go to church and break that. We watched movies and it became realizing God loves you because he created you. You have life. This is not about what box you check and what you do, this and that, because we'll never measure up. That's why Christ had to come. There's no way I could perform enough to equate to that. And I had to start making that message loud as much as I
Yeah.
could.
Well, and I think for those of us who are involved in ministry at that level, we forget that our first ministry is at home. And so you're putting on your pajamas, watching movies, that's ministering. You're ministering to the soul of your child, and
Yes.
you're bringing that moment into balance.
Yeah. And that's what I realized because I didn't want to do that. I didn't want
Yeah.
to have this persona of that because there's no good to come of that. You miss the opportunity, like you said, to lament. You miss the opportunity to understand what Psalms are. All those things are there because life is hard and we need something
Hello.
to pull into.
Yes,
Yes.
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 And so how many of us, well, there have been women who've experienced multiple deaths of a husband, but I think your first is different.
Mm.
And so who who teaches us to walk that experience? I mean, you don't even know. That's an unknown. Truly, it's an
Yes.
unknown. And so you have to learn to do that because God is developing endurance in you and character in you and perseverance in you that you've not yet known, and
Didn't even
hope.
know it was in you. Yeah.
Yeah, and hope. And so who can tell you how to do that? No one. God is bringing you to a place that you've not known before, but we're trusting him to bring us through all right.
And he does. And he does.
And he does. It's just, that's where my joy comes from, because I could just say, with hands lifted high,
Mm.
woo, he has brought me through all right, and there's still more yet to be
Okay,
received.
so there's still more. What does that look like outside of seminary? I mean, would you be open to a relationship?
Oh
What is
my
like, what are you
God.
open to, and what do all those things look like in that more for you?
Well, I think I'm definitely open to it, because now I know who this Alma is to some
Okay.
degree. I know what Alma enjoys. I know how to take Alma out to fine dining and to be comfortable with, as my girlfriend Pam says, dinner for one.
Oh, okay. Yes, yes.
Um, I I think in my youth, I didn't know who I was. I was still developing. And so now I've developed, like I said, I like theater, fine dining. I love to kayak, and I would get
Oh,
out on the water by myself. I
okay.
bought me this banana kayak. And girl, I love the water. I was a lifeguard in my youth, right?
Okay.
And so I was like, I don't know why it took me so long to get out of here, because I love so, yeah, I love to travel. And this is one thing I probably
I know we
well,
got time.
I know, right? So, listen, I got to be somewhere at 9. So, the thing that I love the most is I traveled after my husband died, and I went to Paris. And I was taking my daughter to school in London at that time, and I had promised myself when I met my husband in London that if I ever got to London again, I would go to Paris.
Oh,
And so when I took my daughter to school for college, I took a trip to Paris. I had
wow.
always wanted to see the Eiffel Tower, of course, right? So I went up to the Eiffel Tower, and in my innocence, I didn't know lovers would be up there kissing and hugging. And I'm so sad. Oh my God. But I remember looking towards the east out And I said, God, my life and my marriage did not turn out the way I would have desired, but don't allow my heart to harden to love.
Mm, mm,
And he has done just that. My heart has not hardened to his love, and he has poured out his love on me. And so I do look forward to being in a relationship. And whomever that special person is that God has created just for me in my latter days, he's going to have to take me back to the Eiffel Tower and give me a big kiss and hug.
Alma, this has been so great. As we prepare to wrap up, because I know you got up early and we're doing this because you is a busy woman. Um, any final words, anything you feel like you wanted to talk about that we didn't capture or say to
Oh
the
my gosh,
Widowhood that's listening?
there's so much. Maybe we'll have to do this again, but
Yes, yes, part two.
yeah, I just to share with all the widows and the widowers that it is a journey, and to just continue whatever wherever your faith lies. If it's just a spiritual thing and not necessarily with God or Jesus, um, just hold on to that and be willing, be open to life, be open to new experiences, and just trust the process. And
Mm,
don't allow anyone to take you out of it, because there is no specific timing for it, but you'll know when you know. But then also be cognizant or have people around you who are aware of who you are and when you may be out of balance,
mm,
so that you can ensure that you get the help that you need. Because we can grieve, but then we can grieve to the point where we get stuck. And so that's when we need to ensure that we have the special help that we need. So love you all and love you, Tina. This was so fun.
thank you
I
so
just,
much.
and I'm so proud of you that you have picked up this platform and your care and concern for people. It really does touch my heart, because we're sisters in synergy in that way. I love people, and so I'm picking up a mental health piece, which I thought, wow, but I see it as a part of my calling through Isaiah 61 and setting the captives free. And so
Mm,
there are words that Christ has spoken to us that we've skipped over, because we were not prepared to go there. But when he brings you to this place of surrender, of removing the shame so that love can be
mm,
poured in, um, then we can do a mighty work for him. So I thank
amen.
God for you, and I thank for God for my recovery, and just looking forward to another future talk.
All righty. Thank you so much, Alma.
Thank you, my dear. Love you.
Love you
Bye.
too. Bye bye. Oh, wow. We just wrapped up a conversation with Alma. I have not spoken to her live in years. And so one, I in the link that we will provide information as far as how to connect with Alma, the different things that she's doing. If you want a copy of the book, I'm not sure if it's still in published, but I know I do have a copy. You may find it helpful. I hope that you were able to benefit from this conversation, whether it is managing maybe your absence in the lives of your children while you're dealing with your own grief, and understanding that grief may take 15, 20 years to unpack as you're rediscovering yourself. This conversation that I'm having with Alma and other widows and widowers are for you. I am sorry for the person that you have lost that's driven you to this conversation, but I'm glad that you have become part of our widowhood. I want each one of these conversations to be a nugget that you can pull out of your arsenal as you develop what your own grief walk looks like. You are not alone. Alma and I are here with you on this journey, and I look forward to talking to you soon. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune into Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.